Hey everyone, thank you for watching. Today's video I'm really excited to do. It's going to be a 3 looks with 1 palette using the Natasha Denona Love palette. I will also be giving my thoughts and review on this palette at the end of the 3 looks, so I'm really excited to share this with you. First, I am going to jump in and chat a little bit more about the palette and also share swatches of it. So this palette is $65. I did pick it up myself from Sephora. It is a limited edition palette, so that is something to keep in mind. It launched around Valentine's Day. I love pink and purple eyeshadow. They're some of my favorites to wear. I love combining pinks and purples, which is kind of what I did in this third look for today's video. Another reason I gravitated towards it was I just felt like I would use a lot of these shades in here. Not a lot of them really scared me off. I felt like there was a lot of different combinations that you could do too. So this is a 15 pan palette. You do have the mirror on it. Again, this one is $65. I was also interested in trying out this palette because I really do love the Natasha Denona mini palette. The mini nude is a favorite of mine. The mini glam I also really enjoy. I do have the gold palette from Natasha Denona as well, but I was really curious about kind of this midi size, kind of the in-between size, if you will. I was curious about it. So it says a seductive palette that can be used for playfully bold creations or effortlessly wearable everyday looks. It is a cruelty-free product. It says the eyeshadows in this must-have palette are made with the highest quality pure color pigments, dazzling chroma crystals, and luminous mineral pearls for maximum color payoff with minimal effort. So I am going to go ahead and show some swatches of the palette and describe each shade before we do jump into the 3 different looks. The eyeshadows in the palette we have first, which is a pastel peach. Lifetime is a peach champagne. Heartbeat is a warm burgundy. Transparent is a nude pink ivory. Trust is a medium purple. Heart is a crimson red. Giving is coral with purple sparks. Pure Love is a burgundy with a purple blue shift. Commitment is a deep eggplant. Blind is a warm silver. Soul is a dusty rose. Passion is a muted white with pink sparks. Then we have Intense, which is a warm pink. Valentine is a baby pink. And Dream is an iris violet. So you do have a mixture of finishes in this palette as well. I do use quite a few shades in the 3 different looks that I've been using. So again, I'm going to kind of give my full thoughts on using this palette multiple times at the end of this video. So that is some information on the Love palette from Natasha Denona. Let's go ahead and jump into the 3 looks. I do want to say the first look is going to be a voiceover. I did film this initially for Instagram, and I wasn't planning to do a 3 looks with this palette. I was just going to include it in a trying new makeup, but I actually ended up liking it so much on that first time that I used it that I thought I really wanted to make this video, not only for you guys but also for me. I thought it'd be a really fun way for me to kind of step outside my comfort zone. I don't do these videos a ton, but I really like something about using this palette for the first time. I was like, something is really speaking to me with this palette, so I thought it would also be a fun way for me to be able to show 3 different looks and really get a lot of use out of this palette and to be able to give it a review. So that first one is going to be a voiceover, and then the other 2 I do talk through the tutorial. So just wanted to let you know that. Let's jump into those 3 looks. Starting off with look number 1, coming into the shade Soul with a large blending brush. This is from SL Miss Glam. Running that through the crease and on the outer part of my eye. Then I'm going to grab the shade Heart, and using the Sigma E44, I'm going to focus this one mainly on the outer part of my eye, blending it in a little bit towards the crease. And then grabbing the shade Transparent with a Colourpop E4, I am using this dry, and I'm going to put this on the inner part of my eye and also towards the middle. Then I'm going to keep that same brush and go into Lifetime, again using this one dry as well. And I'm going to really tap this one along the middle part of the eyelid. Back into the shade Heart with the Sigma E44. I'm going to add a little bit of red back to the outer part of the eyes. And then I am going to run this on my lower lash line as well. I'm going to keep the E44 again and use Valentine on the lower lash line also. And then to finish it off, I am just using the shade First on the inner corner and also the brow bone. For the next look, this is what we're going for, and I saw this photo on the Natasha Denona Instagram, and I really liked it, and they listed what shades that they used, so I just used that as a guide to like somewhat try to get this look. It's not quite as dramatic with this like larger flared winged out shadow look going on. The first thing that I did, I'm going to take a larger blending brush. This is the Sigma E40, and then I am going to come into Trust, this purple here, and I'm going to blend that kind of just all over into my crease on the outer part of the eye, and then just slowly blend it towards the inner. I'm just going to take a little bit more of Trust once again and just deepen up the shade a little bit. I'm going to take a smaller brush. This is from Real Techniques, and this is the Essential Crease brush. I just wanted something small, so I'm going to use the shade Commitment, which is definitely a darker shade, and I'm going to take something with a flat edge. So this is an eyelash adhesive from Duo, and I'm going to place it, so to kind of get this precise wing over here, I'm going to place it down and then tap that shadow on the edge of it. You could also use tape. I've already done my face makeup though, so I don't want to be taking off like foundation and concealer in this area, but to still get that line and to have kind of a guide, I just use a sharp edge. I see Carly Bible do this all of the time, and looks like it works out pretty well for her. So this part is a little bit challenging because I don't sit at a table, so I don't have anything like I don't have a mirror to look at, so I'm just gonna go ahead and line up the best I can looking at the viewfinder, and start to tap this on the outer part of my eye and kind of use that guide to follow along. I'm coming a little bit into the crease as well, but just really trying to focus this on the outer part of my eye using my sharp edge as a guide. Sorry, this is really hard for me to do without having a table and still trying to see what it is that I'm doing. I just have the palette in my lap as a mirror. Ooh, the struggle. And when I add in more, I add in a very small amount and tap it off, because this is definitely a very dark shade, so just want to be careful with this one. But when you let it go, then you have the sharp line started, and then from here I'll just add a little bit more and just kind of be aware of that line that we made, but bringing it just a little bit into the crease as well. Back to the Sigma E40, I'm going to pick up Valentine, which is this kind of light pink shade here. And for this one, I'm going to place it a little bit above that first purple shadow and blend it above the crease back and forth. I'm just doing this really lightly. I'm holding the brush more towards the bottom, so it's really light pressure. And that's just going to add a little bit of that pink fade into the look. I always come back and add more shades. I'm going to add just a little bit more Commitment in here. I'm going to take another small brush and I'm going to come into Dream at the bottom here. This one is from Sigma. This is the E33. So again, just a small little brush, and I'm going to focus this one kind of in the middle part of my eye, from the lash line all the way up to the crease, and just kind of running it back and forth, blending it with all of the other shades that we've put down so far. And I'm just going to use the E40 again, just tap a little bit more of Valentine, once again trying to bring some of that pink in here. I'm using Blind, and this is the Colourpop E3. This shade, I used no setting spray, a dry brush, and I thought it was going to be not as it is. I was really surprised by this shade, but in a good way, because this shade needs no help. and it is really, really beautiful. Looking at it in the pan, it wasn't a shade that I was immediately like, oh yes, can't wait to get that on my eyes. But once I used it, I was like, oh yes, I'm so glad that I did this. So I'm just putting this on the inner part of the eye, kind of dragging it up to the center here. Then using my brush once I get to the middle to kind of tap things over. I am also going to use this on the inner corner as well. But this shade is just beautiful and so easy to use. From here, I'm just going to kind of add in any other colors that I want to. So this one is the Dream, which is that purple that I think is so beautiful. Just adding in a little bit of that. Adding in a little bit of Commitment, that darker shade, kind of focusing that on the near the lash line. And then just making sure everything looks nice and blended. So this is the E40 with no extra product. From here, for the lower lash line, I'm going to use this eyeliner from Pur. This is in Rain, which is a purple. So I think that ties in pretty nicely. Then I'm going to use the same shades on the lower lash line, but in a different order. So first going to use Commitment, kind of the darkest one here. And I'm just going to run this on the lower lash line and then use some of the other shades to blend it out so it's not quite so harsh. Then coming into Dream, the lighter purple, and using the same brushes that I applied them with for my eyelid. That might sound obvious, but just saying. And then underneath that, using the E40 and picking up Valentine, that lighter pink. And just really using that one to blend out and soften the shades. All right, after adding a lip, this is another idea using the Natasha Denona Love Palette. And let's go ahead and move into the next look. So coming back for the third and final look using the Natasha Denona Love Palette. I got the inspiration on this look as well from the Natasha Denona page. There's both Natasha Denona and Natasha Denona Beauty, and I think that the accounts do a really good job of sharing looks, especially with the new products. For someone like me who's always looking for inspiration and visuals, that is so fantastic. I'll definitely have it linked. This one is an IG video, this one right here, and shows how they created a look. Now I didn't follow it step by step, and I did something a little bit more dramatic. Theirs is very like everyday ethereal, I think is what it was called, and I was like, I like that concept and I like the shades that they chose, but I was like, I'm gonna do something a little bit different, but that's where I got the inspiration from. So first up, I'm going to come into Intense, and I'm just using a big blending brush from Sigma. This is the E40, and I'm going to run that into my crease on the outer part of my eye, and not being super precise with this one either, kind of running it all along from inner to outer, kind of over my eyelid. I do have really dry eyelids at the moment, so pardon me if that really bugs you, but I really wanted to get like multiple looks with this palette up. And then coming into Valentine, which is the lighter pink, I'm just going to keep the same brush and kind of just mimic the steps that I just did, though I do focus this one a little bit higher as well. But again, windshield wiper motions back and forth, holding on to the edge of my brush and just adding in a little bit more pink. And then starting with the shimmers, I'm going to come into Pure Love, and I'm going to use a Sigma Firm shader. This is the E57. So I'm just going to take this one and start to press it on the center part of my eye, and I'm bringing it up into the crease. I feel like I see Natasha Denona a lot really come into the crease as well with shimmers, and I just really like that look a lot. This is a really cool shade too, and I am using a dry brush. I have not had to use a damp brush with any of the shimmers in this Love palette. That is highly impressive to me. And when a palette is more expensive, that's what I want. I want every shade to work well on its own without having to worry about needing another tool or another way to make the shadow work. So that has really impressed me with this one. And I really like this purple shade. And then I'm gonna use the same brush. I'm just gonna flip it to the other side, pick up the shade right next to it, which is Giving. And I'm gonna focus Giving on the inner part of my eye. I'm gonna hit the inner corner with it as well, but then I'm going to just kind of tap it over Pure Love and just kind of blend that pink and purple together. And I think this made a really cool effect. And I like how they look on top of the mattes that I used too, because in her tutorial she really focused the mattes on the crease, not really anywhere else on the lid. And I was like, oh, I'm just gonna take it everywhere and see what it looks like when I, you know, then come in with the shimmers. And I really liked it. Again, using a dry brush. And I am going to hit the inner corner with this shade. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit of Intense and Valentine on that E40 again. And blend those into the outer part of my eye. And then just kind of make sure everything is blended together. Waterline, I'm going to add some Charlotte Tilbury eyeliner. This is the Pillowtalk eyeliner. The lower lash line, I'm using a Sigma E30. I'm first going to come into Heartbeat. And I'm going to run this really close to the lash line. So grabbing some Soul with that same brush. Kind of just again mimicking those steps. Bringing this one just a little bit lower to smoke it out. Then also coming in to Valentine, I'm going to use this lighter shade to really blend everything together. Add a little bit of transparent to my brow bone. If I do an eye look before doing my makeup, generally I'll clean up the outer edges with, you know, concealer and foundation and all of that. But if I do my face before, sometimes I'll come back in with powder or even concealer. But there is this shade First in the palette. I'm just going to take a little bit of that on just a bigger blending brush. I just kind of use that shade to clean up on the edges. Once I have my mascara on, this third look using the Natasha Denona Love palette is complete. I'll go ahead and do the rest of my makeup so you can see the full look all put together, and then I'll come back and give you my final thoughts on the Natasha Denona Love palette. Now that you've seen the 3 looks, I would love to know, do you have a favorite? I don't know if I do. I loved the red and gold look. Something about those colors together I just think are beautiful. And that's what, you know, kind of instantly drew me into the palette. But I also do love purples on the eyes, so I loved look number 2. But I also really like this one, especially with the kind of, it's more pink, but you have a little bit of pink and purple in here as well. And I really like all 3 that I came up with. So kind of my final thoughts on this palette after I've used it to create several looks and used pretty much every single shade. Yeah, I think I've used every single shade on my eyes, which that's fantastic. I'm really impressed with this palette. Again, like I mentioned in the intro, this was one of those that from the first time I tried it, I was like, I feel like there's something special about this palette. I think that I'm going to get on with it. And all the looks that I've done with it, I've really enjoyed, and I've just found it super easy to use. All of the shimmers that I've used in here, I have not used with a damp brush, and I typically always will wet my brush to use shimmers. I think they pop more. I think they help with fallout, and you don't need that with this palette. It is more expensive at the $65, so that's what I think is great, because when something is more expensive, you want to just be able to use the shadows on their own, and I really think you get really great quality in here with the shimmers. And then with the mattes, even some of the darker mattes in here too, I just feel like they're really easy to work with. I don't have any issues blending them. I don't have to use this palette in any sort of different way, make sure I'm using specific brushes. I can just kind of go into whatever is around me. And I'm having a great time with this one. I'm really excited about it. I did purchase this palette myself. $65 is a lot of money to spend on a palette. I was a little bit worried about it, especially because I bought it a little bit late. I meant to buy it before I went on my Vegas vacation. I just didn't have the time. I purchased it afterwards and a few reviews had come out and they were kind of hit or miss. Some people, especially on YouTube, really didn't like this palette, but I watched a lot of people that we have similar makeup preferences and makeup styles. And a lot of them were saying that they enjoyed it. Michelle Wong let me see this palette in person as well when I did go on the Vegas trip, and I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot. Something about it was still continuing to call to me, and I'm really glad that I did. I'm definitely keeping this palette. I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to do more looks with it. I really like the variety in here too. There's really not kind of like your typical, like, I'm a neutral lover. There's not that kind of neutral brown to put into my crease. You kind of get to mix and match. So even though it's not the most colorful palette in like blues and greens and all of that, there's a lot of color in here. There's a lot of different combinations that you can do with these shades, and I think that's what has me so excited. I'm someone who, I'm not the most visual person. It's hard for me to visualize in my mind, which again, as I was going through the 3 looks, the first one I came up with on my own, the other 2 I was following off of the Natasha Denona Instagram, but I feel like even without having something to follow along with, I can see other color combinations in my mind, and that doesn't happen to me very often. So when a palette gives that to me, that's when I know, like, yes, I made a good purchase, and yes, I think I'm really gonna like this one in my collection. I'm pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoy this palette. I've assumed that I would like it because I liked the color scheme. I've tried Natasha Denona eyeshadows in the past and I like them as well, but I'm a little bit surprised at how much I just really like this palette. I definitely would recommend it. Again, it is going to be a limited edition palette. I don't know when it is going to go away. I'll have some links to it down below if you're interested in picking it up. Again, it is a $65 eyeshadow palette. Does absolutely everybody need this palette? No. If these are not your colors, please don't feel talked into buying it. If you would never wear shades in this palette, then definitely you do not need it. If you're a Natasha Denona fan, if you love the shades in here, or you're just attracted to a color scheme like this, but you are wondering, is the palette worth it? I honestly think that it is. I'm someone who, I do enjoy high-end and luxury makeup, but it's a little bit harder for me to part with my hard-earned money. I think things through a little bit longer. Again, I was gonna purchase this one right away. I ended up holding off, then decided to go for it. And even still at that, I would recommend this palette because I really like it and I'm excited to do some more looks with it. So that is gonna wrap it up for this video. 3 looks and my review on the Natasha Denona Love palette. I would love to know, did you guys purchase the palette? What are you thinking of it? Do you like the style of video? Would you like to see more of them? They are not in my usual repertoire for videos, but let me know if this is something that you'd like to see, and if a palette comes around that I feel really inspired by, maybe I could do several looks with it. So let me know, but other than that, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. If you guys did enjoy it or you found it helpful, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. I hope that you will also consider subscribing before you go, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.